Why Media Group? The fastest growing media group in North America.
Hello and welcome back to Why Media Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh. So great to spend this time with you. And we have the latest numbers on the US job numbers. How is the US economy doing? Well, it has added 57,000 jobs in the month of June, showing a clear slowing down in hiring. The unemployment rate edged down to 4.2%, but partly because fewer people were looking for work is what they have said. Essentially, in April and May, job gains were also revised down to 74,000 jobs, suggesting the labor market is softer than earlier believed. Economists have expected stronger hiring, around 110,000 jobs, with unemployment closer to the 4.3%, but instead, June's report points to what would be low hiring and low firing. So now, when it comes to labor markets, you have companies are not laying off workers aggressively, but they're also not hiring very quickly. The biggest concern is that the labor force has shrank, meaning that the lower unemployment rate may look better than the underlying reality. Now, where do these jobs come from? You have them in healthcare and social assistance that continue adding jobs, while leisure and hospitality unexpectedly weakened. Well, we know that Canadians are not going to the United States the rates they used to prior to President Trump's second term. And that is the case where you have, the border cities with the Canadian border really wanting Canadians back, or whether it's Las Vegas or Florida. But that seems to be the case when it comes to these numbers. Now, this report gives the Federal Reserve more reason to pause before raising rates again. The labor market is not collapsing, but it's still clearly losing momentum of what we're seeing with these job numbers come down. And when it comes for workers, that means fewer new opportunities. And for markets, it's lowering the fear of what would be an aggressive rate hike. Now, the bigger question now is whether this is a soft landing for the US, or is this the first sign of a broader slowdown? And here you have it when it comes to the job reports. Where do these numbers come from? So the total numbers of jobs created is 57,000. The forecast was double that, was about 110,000 to 115,000 jobs. Unemployment rate is at 4.2%, down from the 4.3%. And when it comes to labor force participation, you have about 61.5%, down from 61.8%. The average hourly earnings is about 11 cents, which is about 0.3% to the 37.64 an hour. And when it comes to annual wage growth, it's about 3.5%. And April and May's revisions of 74,000 fewer jobs than previously reported. Now, which sectors had the biggest gains? Healthcare had one of the biggest gains with 22,000 jobs. So almost half of that went to healthcare, as it continues to be one of the strongest sectors due to an aging population, obviously hospitals, outpatient care, and physician offices. And the second industry was social assistance at 25,000 jobs. It is still continuing to growth because of childcare, family services, community support, as well as social workers. And when it comes to professionals and business services, there was a job growth of 36,000 jobs, where you had earnings in engineering, consulting, accounting, and legal services and corporate administration. So this suggests that businesses are still investing in high skilled workers. When it comes to manufacturing and construction, both of them posted modest gains. Construction continues to benefit from infrastructure spending, and we know that data centers, when it comes to AI data center constructions, that is going up with a lot of projects throughout the United States, and what is also on industrial projects. So manufacturing remained relatively stable, And the biggest losers in terms of the job numbers in specific industries was leisure and hospitality. It lost 61,000 jobs. This was the biggest surprise, as we have, normally June sees hiring because June is the summer months. Hiring because of tourisms, restaurants, hotels, and summer travel. That is really when students also get their summer jobs to be able to work in the hospitality and leisure sectors. Yet instead, we saw employers cut jobs based on these numbers. And the possible reason could be consumers are pulling back on spending. There's also higher labor costs and what could be weaker travel demand, whether it's Canadians going to America or potentially Americans traveling with the United States, or really Europeans and other nationalities traveling to the US for the summer months. Now, when it comes to the labor force, the unemployment rate actually fell, but not because hiring was strong. Instead, approximately 720,000 people left the workforce. So either a couple of things happened. Either they stopped looking for work, or they retired, or they paused the job hunting. And if they aren't actively searching, they're not counted as unemployed. That's why economists are calling this report weaker than the unemployment numbers suggest. Now, when it comes to the age groups, one of the biggest concerns came from prime working age Americans from the ages of 25 to 54. Participation among this group fell about 83.9% to about 83.3%. So that's quite significant. That is the prime working age group because it's that the age of 25 to 54 where you have the energy to work full time and multiple jobs if necessary. And that number dropped. The largest decline occurred among 25 to 35, where participation dropped to 82.4%. Now, this surprised economists because this is normally the strongest working demographic. And when it comes to teen unemployment, it also remained elevated compared to older workers, which is also a trend seen in Canada. And when it comes to wages, average hourly earnings rose about 3.3% month over month, which is about 3.5% year over year. However, inflation is still running around 4.2% in the United States, which also means that many workers are still losing purchasing powers, that their dollar is able to purchase less, and because wages are growing more slowly than prices are rising. So when it comes to the market reactions, you have investors that are actually welcoming the report. And why would that be the case? Because you have weaker labor markets mean that the Federal Reserve is less likely to raise its key interest rate. And that means that, and there was supposed to be an announcement for the month of July. So chances are there won't be an increase in the rate. And this will be followed by the treasury yields that have fallen, the stocks have moved higher, and expectations have increased that the Feds will keep the rates unchanged. So this wasn't a terrible jobs report, but it wasn't a healthy one either for the United States economy because you see that hiring has slowed and you have fewer Americans that are participating in the workforce overall, and wage growth is still keeping up with what isn't keeping up with inflation. Inflation numbers, things are a lot more expensive than wages are able to pay for. And we know when inflation is up, we know that the purchase power is lower in terms of what the dollar is able to purchase compared to when inflation numbers are down and at a steady level of about a 2%. Now, the economy appears to be shifting into what economists call a low hire, a low fire environment, where companies aren't laying off workers in large numbers, but they're also becoming much more cautious about adding new staff. They're becoming more cautious about hiring at a faster rate. And that is news for what is to be potentially expected when it comes to the Federal Reserve. Now, in sports news, when it comes to the World Cup, there are three more World Cup knockout spots that are on in line today with two matches taking place in Canada. You have Portugal that's facing Croatia in Toronto at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And while Switzerland plays Algeria in Vancouver at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Now, earlier in the day, you had Spain that faced Austria in Inglewood, California, with winners also advancing to round 16. So when it comes to the Toronto match, it's getting extra attention because it could be Cristiano Ronaldo's final World Cup appearance. if Portugal loses to Croatia. And when it comes to the weather, it's also a major factor with extreme heat now and possible thunderstorms expected around the Toronto match. Now, Canada has also already advanced to the round of 16 after beating South Africa 1-0. And this is huge because Canada's next match is against Morocco in Houston on Saturday, July 4th. July 4th is Independence Day in America, so that's a massive celebration there. Now, another thing that has been released is that Canada will wear an all-black alternate kit when it faces Morocco at the national football team on Saturday, FIFA World Cup a round of 16 match in Houston. Now, the decision comes because of a point of excitement for fans and because Canada has a perfect 2-0 record in the black stripe during their tournament scores, 7 goals and conceding none. So now Canada previously wore the black kit in victories over Qatar in the group stage and at South Africa in the round of 32. Now, while this jersey color has no competitive advantage, it has quickly become viewed as what supporters are calling the team's lucky kit. So that is what we'll be expecting to see on Saturday as we watch the match with Canada. This is massive pride for Canadians as we go to the round of 16. And this is a big time where, athletes are famous and famously superstitious, right? And fans can be also superstitious. So every successful tournament seems to be producing a lucky jersey and a ritual or a routine. So whether it's a psychological one or purely a coincidence, well, what we want to know is that coincidences matter if knockout, when it comes to knockout football or soccer. And so Canada enters the match against Morocco riding a huge momentum. And if the black kit gives players and fans an extra boost of belief, then they'll gladly take it. So ultimately, though, history won't be made by the color of shirt itself. But of course, we're all crossing our fingers as another superstitious thing for this match that's coming up. And when it comes to the United States, they've also advanced to the FIFA World Cup. They've defeated Bosnia and Herzegovina 2-0 to the round of 16, earning its first knockout stage victory in 24 years, despite playing much of the match with 10 men after a striker received a red card. Now the Americans now face Belgium in Seattle. That's what we're going to be watching for. And a big announcement is that the city of Toronto has canceled the FIFA World Cup public watch party, and that's for today at Nathan Phillips Square because of extreme heat warning. Officials say that the combination of dangerous temperatures and significant resources needed to safely manage the large crowds around the Portugal and Croatia World Cup match made it unsafe to proceed. So there's cancellation that applies only to the July 2nd public viewing event, and all other ones are going to be scheduled as needed until there is an announcement made by the city of Toronto, because you have Environment Canada that's issued a heat warning throughout Toronto with temperatures expected to exceed 35 degrees and the humidity index to be about 40 degrees Celsius. So that's very high when it comes to heat related illnesses. And that is something to watch out for, to be able to hydrate and keep, doing well during this time of excitement while watching the FIFA World Cup. And that's another thing when it comes to the heat wave. We've covered what's taking place in Europe, where you had 1,300 deaths associated to the heat wave. 1,000 of those are coming from France alone. And now the United States is also in a heat wave. About 142 million Americans remain under extreme heat warning. And that's persistent heat dome drives temperatures and humidity to a dangerous level across much of eastern United States. So forecasters are warning that the heat index values between 100 degrees Fahrenheit as well as 115 degrees Fahrenheit, which could continue for several days. Of increased risk of heat-related illnesses, especially when it comes to seniors and outdoor workers and people who are of a vulnerable population. So what this means is, stay cool, stay indoors, stay hydrated, and enjoy the series of the World Cup. That's all the time we have for Y Media Newsroom. I'm Ramona Singh. Until tomorrow, take care and be well.